I have a new favorite wood to work with. Genuine mahogany. Now there are 3 scientific species of mahogany that are considered genuine mahoganies. I'm not going to try to pronounce those names, but it's usually sold as Cuban, Honduran, Brazilian, and sometimes Mexican mahogany. There are about 3 others that are not really mahoganies, but are pretty close, and then 15 or so that are not actual mahoganies, but either look like it or have similar properties. So when you're looking for genuine mahogany, just know that it's going to be under one of those 4 names or just called genuine mahogany. Now, it's not the cheapest wood in the world, but it's not the most expensive. For a long time, it got deforested and it became really expensive, but they grow it now on a lot of plantations. You're probably getting plantation mahogany. It's still the genuine species. It's just not from the rainforest or wherever out in the wild because it's just much easier and better for the environment to farm it. Now, genuine mahogany can range in price quite a bit depending upon whether there's figure or not. You can get anywhere from kind of $10 to $16 a board foot for, kind of more plainish, and anywhere from 4/4 to 8/4. You start going up after that with thicker or heavy figure. It's just going to get more expensive. So it's not cheap, but it's not really out of the price range of a lot of people. And I think it's something that a lot of people may get intimidated by. The name, the kind of legend of mahogany, fine furniture, but it really is somewhat affordable in terms of approachability. Now, for a long time, my favorite wood to work with was soft maple, and it's still my favorite looking wood because there's such a variety and it's really easy to get for me in North America. But it's no longer my favorite one to work with in terms of actually using the tools on the wood. I was blown away by mahogany and how much of a pleasure it is to work with. There was no tool that I was like, God, this is just awful. Everything was great with genuine mahogany. If I had to describe the workability, it's like poplar and soft maple had a baby. It's closer to the hardness of soft maple, but just kind of machines and cuts closer to poplar. There's less tear out than soft maple. It's like these 2 came together and then added a beautiful red color, and that's how I would describe working with genuine mahogany. Now, in terms of the Janka rating, the traditional way to measure density, hardness, whatever you want to call it, it's about 900, very similar to soft maple. But once you start working with it, you'll notice it just feels easier to work with. It's kind of strange that it can have a similar Janka, but a totally different feel and workability. I'm going to touch on each of the kind of tools using, and we're going to use a scale here, with 1 being the best thing you could work with and 10 being the worst wood you could work with. So when I say a lower number, that's better. Now, I just want to say up front that I'm working with non-figured mahogany. So some of this is going to change a little bit if you've got heavy figure, and it's going to be more prone to tear out and things like that. So for clean, straight grain, we're not talking interlocked here. These are how these numbers are going to be reflected. The first one, the milling process, hand planing, putting it through the planer itself, jointing it, etc. Unbelievably clean. I have pretty dull blades in there right now. I just planed this down and it is shiny. When you hand plane it, you just get these nice shavings coming off. Feather, you don't get any chatter, even if I haven't sharpened my hand plane in like 2 weeks, and it just crisp and smooth. So you're really going to enjoy that. If you like hand planing, you're going to probably take too much off because it's such a nice experience. Up next, we usually move on to the sawing, the rough dimensioning, table saws, hand saws. For both of those, again, a 1 out of 10. I got little to no tear out, even with using a ripping blade to make some rough cross cuts. It was actually pretty incredible, and you could probably get away with using like a 40-tooth blade for most of your cross cuts and not have an issue, though, use a cross cut blade. Overall, though, it just glides right through. I don't have the biggest motor in my saw. It's only 1.75. I don't have the 3 horsepower. And it cuts through, again, much like poplar. It just has that very clean, easy feel. It doesn't have a ton of gumming up on the blade. You don't get, depending upon where you get it from, if it's properly dried, I didn't get a lot of tension. And just overall, I found myself very happy with the cut quality coming right off the table saw. Up next, we have the router. Again, a 1 out of 10 for me. I got almost no tear out, just a little bit when I took a bit of a hog of a cutoff with a 45-degree chamfer bit, pretty big one. But that's on me. That's not really on the wood itself. Overall, took profiles wonderfully. It took grooves wonderfully. The plunge routing of some mortises worked really well. I didn't get any tear out. I didn't have any issues, no burning, nothing like that. So routing for me is a 1 out of 10, meaning it's excellent. One of my projects involved the bandsaw, and it was I'll give it a 2 on this one. I did get a little tear out, but I was using a 6-tooth blade, pretty rough, not the newest one in the world. Nothing more than I would expect out of like a soft maple. So still really good and much better than most woods in terms of tear out. cut through it cleanly, no real issues, but not perfect, and that may be due to the blade, but there are poplar cuts a little better on the bandsaw in terms of tear out, so it can't get a 1 there. One of my projects required drilling, I want to say 50 holes at 75 degrees, so quite a few holes, and it was a 3/16 inch drill bit, if I remember correctly. No tear out, right through 75 degrees, going down and through. Excellent. Now, it was a relatively decent drill bit. It was not a super cheap one, so take that into account. But 1 out of 10 at the drill press, and I hand drilled, I think, only 1 hole. Totally fine there, no issues. The drill press was with a brad point bit, and the hand was with a normal bit, so both of them worked really well. 1 out of 10 for drilling. I think the thing that surprised me the most was the chiseling. 900 is not the softest wood in the world. It really isn't, but that's good sometimes. Softest kind of woods are not always easy to chisel. You want something kind of in the middle, and this was just beautiful. End grain, you're just getting those nice little shavings coming right off of there. Absolutely no problem on face grain chiseling either. Chopping was totally fine. It didn't feel like it blunted my chisel much, if at all. Obviously, it's nice to keep them sharp as you're going, but I didn't really feel like I had to rush back to the strop to clean it up. It's really nice to chisel with, especially on the end. I can't emphasize enough how enjoyable it was to chisel on the end grain and to clean some things up. So a 1 out of 10 for me when chiseling. Now, as we get towards the end of a project, we have the sanding. Really good sanding, really easy, and it actually is a little forgiving in that it doesn't sand away as fast as some other woods. So if you accidentally go a little too hard over a spot, you're not going to eat a divot out of there, which it takes a little more time, but I appreciate that. So I'm going to give this like a 2 out of 10 in terms of sanding. It tends to hide the scratches a little bit more than you'd think too. You actually kind of have to get a light down with like 220 grit to make sure you've got them all. So make sure if you are sanding that you get light from different angles because it hides them pretty well, which is usually a good thing. Not the fastest, but a little forgiving and hides the scratch as well. 2 out of 10 for sanding. Our second to last stop is the glue up, and I did multiple panels straight from the table saw rip blade glue up, perfect seams, no problem, which just again reflects the cut on the table saw coming out extremely clean and absolutely good on the glue up. It's not an oily exotic wood. Some exotic woods have a lot of oil. You got to wipe them down with mineral spirits first. Worked perfectly fine to me. Now, the only downside of glue up and then the finishing as well is that it's got some open pores in it. So if you do kind of smear glue into those pores, you're going to struggle a little bit to get it out without having to remove material. So for glue up, it really gets a 3 out of 10 for me, only because it's not a completely closed face. And then following on that with the last step would be the finishing. Again, if you are somebody who likes that glassy, smooth surface and you don't like to be able to feel any pores, you're going to have to fill them. It's nowhere near, it's not like an oak or anything like that, but there's just enough there that when you rub across, you would feel a little bit. And if you got the light and you just do an oil, you're going to see a few of those little pores in there, but overall pretty smooth, super easy to finish, takes oil, doesn't take a ton of it in, which is nice. You're not going to have it soaking up for a long time. I think I did lacquer on one of the pieces, sprayed really well. It didn't disappear into there. So excellent to finish. 1 out of 10. Let's go 2 out of 10 only because of the pores if you have to fill the pores for your project. Now, the only downside of the Genuine Mahogany, in my opinion, is it has no real scent. One of my favorite things when I'm working with woods is the different scents they get when they're being machined. Walnut, cherry, rosewood, they all have a unique scent. You come to recognize them, even pine. This just has nothing. There's just nothing there. I don't know, it's kind of boring in terms of the smell. But that's obviously just a small personal thing and not something that really affects the ability to use it in general. Unbelievable wood. I'm going to bring you in. This is freshly planed. This is not. And I'm just going to put some mineral spirits on here. It darkens up a lot. It's actually quite amazing, and it will darken with sunlight and oxygen as well. So be prepared for that. You're not going to be able to keep this light, freshly planed color forever. You can see here how the unplaned one, which has been sitting on my shelf for a little while, is darker, and it darkens up quite fast once you're done finishing it and it's sitting in the sunlight. Not a huge difference, but trust me, it gets darker. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Overall, a 1 out of 10 when you look at everything combined, meaning it's my favorite wood to work with. Now, again, not my favorite aesthetics. I still like all the variety of soft maple. But in terms of workability, just an absolute pleasure to work with. And if you have the ability to go grab some for a project and you want this color and this look, I absolutely suggest doing it. Shop around so you don't pay an extreme price. Again, it's going to be a little bit higher than your domestics because it has to be imported. So thanks for joining me. Hopefully this gave you a bit of an idea what you may be getting into if you start working with some Genuine Mahogany. Have a good one.